Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Inner Blueprint, the podcast. I'm your host, Sean Foyer.
And your co-host, Caitlin Foyer.
And we, as always, are excited to be here, delivering messages all about mindset. This podcast is designed specifically for the home improvement industry. But as listeners know, it ripples beyond that. You know, our ripple effect and our mission is to help millions of people worldwide remove self-limiting beliefs, the chains that hold us all back, so more people may live their lives in freedom, abundance, fun, and love. And this is just one of the tools, one of the mediums we use to get our message out. So, Miss Caitlin.
Yes.
How does it get better?
It just does.
It just does. It's one of our mantras. We wake up every day and we set the expectation. You know, there's this concept. If I would ask you as a listener to pay attention to how many red cars you saw this morning, you would have saw red cars. And because you didn't. And what are you setting your expectation for? And I know for us, one of the expectations we set is asking ourselves, Miss Caitlin,
how does it get better?
It just does, or it just did. Only appropriate answers. And as we've been looking for that, what have we found over the last few years?
It just keeps getting better. And it's so funny because sometimes I'll say, I can't wait to see how it gets better, right? Like, it just does. Sometimes I'm just like, man, I cannot wait to see, because my expectations are exceeded daily.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
And have we used this concept through any challenges in the last couple of years?
All of them. All of them.
Yeah, we've had some death.
Yeah.
We've lost some loved ones.
Yes.
We've had some challenging relationship situations come up.
Yep.
Yeah. We've had some challenges with our wellness from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And through the challenge, how does it get better?
It just does.
And then when we get to like a pinnacle win, like our wedding, our honeymoon, our house, like we've had all these great things. We don't get there and say, okay, this is as good as it gets.
No, definitely not.
We don't. And I used to, right? I know in mine, and Caitlin, we were talking before this episode, and she's like, I don't remember what I used to think. And I remember I used to think, holy shit, it's really good. I hope it stays here for a little bit, because I'd been programmed to struggle. My life had challenges in it to the point that I think I expected more challenge. Even when things were going good, I was like, all right, it's pretty good right now.
Something's going to happen.
Where's the next challenge?
Right.
Where's the next heartache, right?
And so what would show up?
Challenge and heartache.
Weird. So weird how that works.
And challenge still shows up. The heartache a little bit less. And it's setting that expectation. So I think part of this for today's episode is I feel like I have a better understanding of myself today, which helps me understand others and the world we live in. What about you? I mean, when we first met, what had you been told about yourself?
That I was too much. I was definitely the friend that other people had to like warn other friends about. Like, oh, Caitlin's coming. She's kind of a lot. Like, she's a lot of energy. So I was just told that I was like bossy, I was aggressive, and that I was just too much. I was way too much.
And have I ever told you that?
Not once.
No.
Never, ever. It's crazy,
No.
actually.
I remember, first meeting Miss Caitlin, and yeah, I had a lot of thoughts, but none of them were that she was too much. None of them were she was too much. I thought she was beautiful. I thought she was smart. I thought she was so insanely knowledgeable. I mean, this woman she's like an encyclopedia. She's a little fact finder. And for me, one of my initials as a friend, because we met at a training, was I just want to know more about her. I would like to know. And I had a tool that I've been using for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
And you use some behavioral type tools.
Yeah, I was certified in a few different ones. I used them for hiring for different companies. It was something I was very well versed in until I got ours.
Yeah. And so today's episode, listener, if you're wondering, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to give you some information about how we can profile and survey our employees, our teammates, ourselves.
Yes.
And get a better understanding of two things. How we show up. So if you put me in a room, I have a predictable pattern of how I'm going to show up. And if you ask me why I go in a room, I have predictable motivators that motivate me to go to a room. And when we understand our behavioral style, and our behavioral motivators, we're able to work with ourselves better. And then when we take it to the next level and understand others, magic starts to happen, right?
Oh, it's just the first step's awareness, right?
Yeah.
So when we're aware of not just how we show up, but why we show up, it's like liquid gold. Like,
Yeah.
just is so easy at that point, right?
Yeah, and the profile that we use at SFC, and it's crazy. So many people say, well, I've heard of the DISC, Sean. I've done the DISC. Well, I've found the DISC is misunderstood.
Yes.
My mentor told me, the one we use is the original design that wasn't maybe necessarily properly patented and protected. So there's bastardized versions, and there's really inexpensive versions, but it's kind of like anything. You get what you pay for, and the one we use is way more accurate than anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's not just a disc. So I don't even call it that. I call it a behavioral survey because it does have the two parts. And, I've been using it for 15 years. I started my journey with this profile, and my mentor, Grant Mazmanian, a lot of people in the industry know Grant. He's kind of a legend in behavior. We used to call him the mystic because when he'd debrief you on your survey, he'd kind of close his eyes and bring this information from the ethers and know more about you than he should from looking at a little graph. But I started, and I've told Caitlin this story a bunch. Me and my dad, 2003, we took the survey. I remember I was a skeptic at the time. I filled it out, 15 minutes, sent it in. Let's see what they can tell me about me with these silly questions. And I got it back, and I couldn't believe how accurate my dad's was. We've talked about that, right, Caitlin?
It's so funny how many people do that, right? You take it together, and you're like, well, mine's not right, but it is for this person.
Yeah, and I thought mine wasn't right. And if it was right, I didn't like it because I want to be a business owner. I'm partners with my dad, and he's this assertive, direct, very logical, non-emotional business person. And his profile showed that, and mine showed something different.
Yours was the exact opposite.
I'm a people person. I'm emotional.
You're supportive.
I'm supportive. I'm kind of all over the place with those two things. But yeah, it gave me a tool. I used it in my business, for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
I used it as a business coach for 5 years. And then let's bring Miss Caitlin into the story because when I met her, I'd actually been using it a little bit as a dating tool because I'd seen and I'd worked with couples and I'd used it in my previous relationship. And I could see in relationships how certain profiles work really well together, complement, how some work against each other. And so as I first met her, even as a friend that I was going to bring into my experience, I'm very protective of my space now as a mindset coach. Let me see how, and it's funny because we had Miss Caitlin do it, and then we had a good friend we met at the same time, Janitha.
Yep.
So I had Janitha and Caitlin. I'm like, hey, you guys, I do this survey with my work. Can I just have you take it? And
of course, we were like, absolutely.
But tell me what your first thoughts were, because I didn't set the intention that I want to know more about this woman, because maybe one day I can marry her.
Well, like I said, I was certified in multiple different personality assessments or behavior analysis, things like that. The Colby, 16 personalities, which is just the Myers-Briggs, things like that. And so I was like, cool, another thing, like, tell me more about myself. Like, that's great. And what was your reaction when you got mine?
Well, it's funny because, and Caitlin started this episode talking about she'd been told she was too much.
Yeah.
And when you look at her behavioral profile, there's definitely a lot of energy there.
Yeah.
And there's definitely energy in two of the most powerful behavioral styles for having impact and bringing energy to a situation. So when I saw it, made sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, she's high energy. She loves people. She's very assertive and direct.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask yourself what she's thinking because she's already told you 2 times what's on her mind. But to me, it gave me really good understanding. And, I think I've told you too, because I sent it to my mentor. Like, it came through him.
Yeah.
And he's like, who is this woman? Like, what do you plan on doing? Are you working with her? And I'm like, no, I might date her. And he's like, oh. And his reaction might have been like, she's a lot, bro. Like, you realize what you're getting into, but it's not a lot. It's not too much. It's just, there's the D, the I, the S, and the C. And the D and I are assertiveness and extroversion. And she's really high on the charts.
Very high.
So she's going to come at you very fast. She's going to build trust very quickly. And I knew that, and I can adapt to that. And for where I wanted to go, we've talked about, I was looking for a co-pilot for my life, for SFC, and we introduce each other as host and co-host. We both drive the airplane.
Yeah.
We both drive this show.
True.
We both drive the work. We both drive our family. Like, we are equal partners.
Absolutely.
And she has a lot of traits in her behavioral style that I'm lower in. And I knew that would serve our relationship to have somebody that was higher in some of the things that I am, and I'm higher in some of the things that she isn't. And we actually complement
Yes.
each other very nicely.
Very well.
Yeah. I'm kind of rambling on this. Anything else that...
No, I think it's so interesting though. And then what was so cool about this is, I'd been told my behavior, like how I show up, what my, method of operation is, what all of the things, right? But what I thought was so interesting was the motivators.
Yeah.
So why? Why do I show up? Like what motivates me? Because I just thought everything motivated me before. Like I'm pretty easily motivated. I'm so easy for me to get motivated. Like tell me one thing. I mean, you could be like, we're going to get tacos. And I'm like, let's go. I'm so excited. Let's do this, right? It can be anything that motivates me.
Well, and let's talk about this though, because if Miss Caitlin wanted tacos and she got excited about tacos,
which I do.
Yeah. And let's say we were out on the west side of Salt Lake City, maybe out by the Copper Mine, maybe by her old cheer gym, right? Mm-hmm. And the tacos were in Las Vegas and we had to be to Idaho the next day. Miss Caitlin was okay with if she really wanted something.
Yeah.
She would drive all over town.
Yep.
Or even 2 states.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this when we get into the motivators. She didn't see a problem with that.
Nope. It got me what I wanted, even if it made no sense to anyone else.
Yeah. And when we talk about the motivators here, one of them is the utilitarian. And the utilitarian motivator, there's 6 motivators of men and women that we work with. And let's start with the utilitarian. Let's talk about that one because I'm very high on the utilitarian.
Yeah.
And she was originally very low on the utilitarian.
It's true. And it was because I didn't value my time, my money, or my energy.
And I very much have always valued my time, my energy, and my money. Even when I didn't protect my energy, I've still at some level valued it. And so as we started hanging out, I immediately understood when she wanted to go 13 different places that made no sense and didn't have any, when we talk about time, there's Eastern time, there's Mountain time, and then there's KST. And I call it Caitlin Standard Time because to her, time was an unlimited resource. And to me as a utilitarian, we have to use our time wisely. We have to at least plan accordingly. And for you, that wasn't even a thing, right?
Yeah. And it was so funny because that motivator mixed with my low S, right? Like on the disc, my S is very low, which is systemized, like planning, things like that. Mine's really low.
Well, your S and C. Your C is non-existent. So, and C is compliance.
Yes.
Following the rules. So she has very little steadiness, very little compliance.
Yes.
All gas pedal with a high D.
Yep.
All people with a high I, and not valuing her time. So she's like a shiny object chaser, just going to what the next thing is.
100%. Yeah.
And for your life, and did you end up circling instead of beelining towards things sometimes because you were doing too many things at once?
Yeah. I still struggle with that at times where you'll kind of give me the look and I'm like, oh shit, I'm doing it again, huh?
Yeah. Well, not just your time though. Let's talk about this too, because when we work with, and if you, as listeners, if you're interested, we actually, for business owners, do a free profile to introduce our work to you. So if you're interested, hit us up. But the utilitarian is about valuing your time and valuing your money. And the higher you are on that score on the scale, the more you value your time and money. Well, Miss Caitlin was low on this scale originally.
Yep.
So she didn't value your time, which meant she also didn't, at some level, value money.
Yeah.
And what did that look like for you when we first met?
Well, that was just like a belief that had been instilled in me that money doesn't equal happiness. And I was a very happy person. I'm a very happy person.
And you had seen people with money that weren't happy.
100%.
They dedicated too much
crying
time.
in their Ferraris, right? And I was like, I don't ever want to do that. Like, I'm just a happy person, and money doesn't equal happiness, so it's fine. I made pretty good money, but like it wasn't my motivator, right? Like I was like, I want to show up to work and I want to, kick ass and be the best on my team, and I want to work with people that I love. Like those are more that's what got me to work, was like, who can I beat today and who can I see today? And it wasn't like how big's my paycheck going to be?
Yeah. So listeners, if you're making notes, the first one we're talking about is the individualistic
the utilitarian
motivator. And the utilitarian motivator, time or money.
Yes.
And she was lower on this one.
Yep.
But she just brought up a second motivator that we work with, and it's called the individualistic.
And that one's my top motivator, always has been.
So the high individualistic individual likes to win.
Yep.
Likes to compete with themselves and others. And for me, look at how fun this was. I know she's not motivated by money, but she's very competitive. So if I wanted her even to be better with her time, I would just tell her she couldn't do something, right?
Yeah.
A challenge to a high individualistic, and if you're listening and you know this is one of your motivators, think about it. If someone tells you, like Caitlin, if I said, babe, we can't do this.
Oh, I would show
you. You can't do this.
Yeah, I would show you 25 ways that we could. Like just immediately I would have to. Like it would physically hurt me to not do that. So yeah.
Yeah. And again, so if we have you take this survey and it comes back and you're in sales and you're a decent salesman, but you want to be better. If I saw that you had a lower utilitarian, return on time and money, and a lower individualistic, I'd know we'd have some work to do to maybe raise some inside motivation, because in sales, especially in home improvement sales, the most successful reps we work with, and in our database with Grant and his team, I think we have over 40,000 profiles on file.
Yeah, we have a lot.
Top sales reps, those two motivators are typically in the top 3 of the 6. Like they like to win and they like to make money and they like to be efficient with their time.
Yes. And then what's the third motivator we always look for with that too?
Usually theoretical.
Theoretical, which is a love of learning.
Yes, the theory, which Caitlin,
that's my second highest.
Her second highest is the theoretical, which means she loves information. And if you think about that, the motivators work together. She's individualistic. She likes to win. Her second is theoretical. She likes to learn. Combine those. If she can learn information to help her win.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one reason she's such a student of mindset with me, is she's found the more she learns about herself and her mind, the more she wins,
Yeah.
So those are 3 of the 6 that we come up with, right? Individualistic, money.
Theoretical.
Utilitarian money.
Utilitarian
individualistic.
Competitiveness.
Theoretical. Learning.
Learning, yes.
Yeah. And then we have a couple other ones. Yours was decent, if I remember right, on the aesthetic.
Yes, aesthetic it shows up in a lot of different ways. You call it the bougie factor.
Yeah, I call the aesthetic the bougie because a lot of high aesthetics like nice things. Nice clothes, nice cars, nice experiences.
That's the one that I see more, is more of the experience. People want the experience. They're not, even if you could get like the same, the exact same meal at like a Chili's.
Yeah.
Versus the brand new restaurant down the street that has a wait list and a really great decor and like as a total experience. It could be the exact same dish. It could be even cheaper at Chili's. I'm going to go, because I'm high aesthetic, to this other restaurant, right? And high aesthetics would do that. Even if it's the exact same thing at a lower price, at something not as fancy.
But again, she's more aesthetic than utilitarian.
Yes.
So she might overpay for an experience
100%.
because she doesn't have the balance.
Yeah.
Now, I, on the other hand, my highest is a utilitarian.
Yes.
I'm a very transactional, for results type person, but I also have a lot of aesthetics. So I want the best experience with a little more practicality to it. Let's make sure we get a good deal, or at least that I can perceive the value of spending my time or money on this experience. But aesthetic, especially in exterior and design type companies in the home improvement, I like to see some aesthetic in business owners, in project managers, in sales
consultants.
People. Yes. And again, none of these are like 100% guarantee or success.
No.
These are just characteristics. If we use this as a managing tool, as a hiring tool, there are a bunch of other criteria that you should have as far as your interview process, your systems in place. This is just one more tool, but we believe it's a very important one to say, okay, what motivates this person?
Well, it's a gate predictor of success, right?
Yeah.
And not just showing like how they show up, but why they show up. Because again, if we go back to mine, my profile is perfect for either an entrepreneur or a salesperson. I'm 100D, I'm like a 90I, like it is being all gas pedal. Let's go, let's do it now.
And we'll talk more about what those mean in a minute. If you're wondering what's a D, what's I, we'll talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah. But then my motivators, because my utilitarian was low, especially lower than my aesthetic and much lower than my competitiveness, money didn't motivate me as a salesperson. And so I wasn't the greatest salesperson because I wasn't motivated by a return on my time or my money.
Yeah. And again, we don't, like in our work, I focus on helping people more than I do a commission, but I have to be driven by the commission. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to sell, right? You're going to run in, and those of you that are in home sales or have ever been, in the home improvement industry, we get 1 yes for every 2 no's. So we hear no, no, yes, no, no, yes, no, no, yes. Sometimes no, 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 no. Yes, yes. That's going to wear you out and beat you down. But if you have the right motivators, that competitive spirit, that drive to not waste your time and money, to always be working for better results, we see that as a predictor of success. And so we do use this as a tool to hire around, to manage around.
Yep.
So let's stay on the motivators, because I think for a lot of people, they might have heard of the behavior, but let's really dig in. So we've got the three we've covered: the utilitarian, repetitive. I know I'm repetitive. It's how we learn. The individualistic,
Yep.
competitiveness, the theoretical, just love of learning. Like both of us, we geek out. If you give us new
Oh, yeah.
information, we go to, our rabbit holes of the shows we watch are usually documentaries
Always.
and YouTube videos, trying to learn more about the mind, more about manifesting, more about ourselves.
Yeah. And
So-
theoretical was one that really connected us together because we both have this extreme
Yeah.
love of learning, reading,
Yeah.
and just finding out more about it. We know knowledge is power, right?
Knowledge and truth. Truth
Yes.
is power. In fact, we were just joking the other day. We were watching. She'd never seen A Few Good Men, you guys.
I had
Never
not.
seen A Few
I
Good.
had
So
not,
we
no.
watched it, and the part where Tom Cruise is getting Jack Nicholson to say the truth. You can't handle the truth.
It's
But
true.
we were talking. I was like, oh my gosh, babe, that's one of the things that drew us together. Is we just want the truth. We just
Yeah.
want good information on how our minds work, on how this physical world works, and how we can use our tool, Inner Blueprint, to have bigger impact. So,
Yeah.
aesthetic. She likes nice things. I like nice things. For both of us, I think it is more about the experience.
Yes.
Watching a sunrise together, drinking a cup of coffee, sitting on the beach,
Yeah.
spending time in our living room just with our girls, hanging out. Like that's the experience of life. And so that's one of them. All right. What are the other ones? What's your favorite other one that we get to work with people on? That's like
The social.
The social, right?
So it's so funny. People are like, social. I'm like, not like social butterfly,
no.
more like socialism, right?
Or just the greater good. I mean,
The greater
I
good.
call the high social the Mother Teresa. If I've got
Yes.
somebody in my organization that's a high social, they want to help people. They want to do the right thing. They would literally give you their shirt off their back. A high utilitarian, I like helping people. I might be selective on who I give my shirt to, right? Because I have that utilitarian motivator.
Or more, you would just teach them how to buy
Or
their
I
own
would
shirt.
teach them how to get their own
Yeah.
shirt. High social and in a home improvement, I've got some business owners, a couple in our group, they're high social.
Yeah.
They're a little bit utilitarian. And for both of the individuals I'm thinking of right now, they've worked on that a little bit because
Yes,
they've
they
had to
have.
realize if they don't make money, if they're not profitable in their business,
They can't help
they
people.
can't help people. They can't even help themselves sometimes. So using them, but if somebody's in a position that money isn't the most important part of the job, right? Salespeople, commission, money's pretty important. Support team, office administration, even production. I like to see some social because these type of people want everybody to win. It's kind of the opposite of your primary, the individualistic.
Yeah, and social is my lowest. It's your lowest too, actually.
Yeah.
Social is
Which is crazy because we help people all day, every day.
and we love helping people. I mean, I'm not like there's nothing that makes me happier than when I'm helping others, when I'm
When
helping
we get
them
a
be
text,
happy.
an email, a phone call,
Literally.
of our clients winning, we celebrate it.
But what it comes down to is I'm not willing to help someone that isn't willing to help themselves.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sure a lot of it is life experience. I've been burned doing that
Yeah.
way too many times. And so it's something where I will literally give you the shirt off my back if you need it, if you're willing to help yourself. But
Yeah.
if not, then
Or if we can work together on getting me a replacement shirt.
yeah, right? Something, right? But it's like, yeah, if you're not willing to help yourself, I can't help you. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
Nothing demotivates me more.
And then what's the other one? We covered all of them, except for the traditional.
The traditional is interesting. Traditional is more about just doing things the way they've always been done.
Way, tradition.
I always say, the Mandalorian, like this is the way. They just do it because this is the way. It's the way that so and so did it. Like my grandma, my grandpa, like her mom. Like it's just how it's done.
And we see sometimes it comes from religious backgrounds,
Yes.
sometimes it comes from military,
Yes.
but it is just an importance and value on tradition and doing things a certain way. I used to joke when Teslas first came out, a high tradition person wouldn't trust a new electric car. They would want something that's been time tested.
A Cadillac, a Chevy,
Chevrolet, yes.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that that's been around that has proven the test of time, things like that. Traditional is my second lowest. That and social are very, very low for me, and it's because I love to shake up the norm. I love to
Yeah.
change things just because this is the way it's always been done. Why?
Well,
Why is it the way it's always been
because of
done?
your knowledge, we can probably learn a better way.
Uh-huh.
And we talk about, some of the motivators work against each other. If somebody is high theoretical, loves to learn, and high
And
traditional,
that's a rough
think of
one.
in religion, you're told to have faith and not question. The theoretical is questioning everything. And I've had people that have the two pillars of the tradition and the theoretical, and it's cool for them to understand that inner dialogue that goes on. I want to learn about this, and this just told me to question this, but my faith in this process or system is saying not. I mean, that's a bipolar motivator at some
It
level.
is. It's very clashing, right? But it
But we've
is
helped a lot of
interesting.
people with that,
Yes.
understand it. And the one thing about the motivators, they change, right? Your behavioral style might be harder, and we'll talk about that in the second part of this episode. But motivation, are you more motivated by money today than you were before?
Absolutely, because I was made aware, like, you're not valuing your time, your money, and your energy. And I was like, I'm not? Like, I didn't even know, right? But then I was made aware, and now it is. It's my second, it's my third. It's my third
Yeah.
highest now.
And you did that with first step is awareness, being
Yes.
aware of something. And then you started doing affirmations
Yeah.
about how much money you would make,
100%.
about value in your time.
Yes.
You know, I am efficient with my time. I am so happy and grateful I'm earning X amount of dollars. It was way more than we
Yeah.
were talking about this.
And
like,
I started-
your bar was set so low
It
on what we
was.
could make together.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was so funny to go back through what my original, inner blueprint goal was. It was so low comparatively. Like what my yearly was is now my monthly. And so it's so crazy. And actually I had a lot of beliefs about myself that I was only as valuable as
What
the
you could
task I
provide.
can complete,
Yes.
what I could provide, things like that. And once I learned that that's not true, that's not real, like I'm valuable just showing up, like I'm just me. And it made me realize like I can be more of a utilitarian. I can value my time and money more because who I am is not based off what I can do for others.
Yes.
And so it was really huge for me, but it's cool. The motivators are so interesting, and it's something that we definitely look for because again, someone can have the perfect profile, but if their motivators aren't right, it's going to take a lot of coaching, and you
Yeah.
have to decide, is that something I want to do? Like, we go back to the traditional. It's actually something I look for when I'm hiring for a small home improvement business that has a lot of tradition.
Yeah.
Because these people...
Family values.
Yes.
We have a lot of spiritual people we work
Yes.
with and men and women of faith.
Yep.
That's important to their company. And if a low traditional comes into a high faith-based organization,
It's going to be really,
I mean,
really
we've had a couple
difficult.
companies that were literally trying to build faith-based organizations, that it was
Yeah.
all about God first through the business. And if you get somebody that doesn't jive with, wouldn't it be nice to know
Yeah.
before you get 3 months down the road and realize culturally there's motivator challenges? And that's
Yeah.
where this is such a, I always call it the peek under the hood, right?
It is.
If you're going to buy an automobile, it might drive really well, but you want to know what's going on inside of this automobile. Let's
Yeah.
hire a mechanic. For us,
What's running this
yeah,
automobile?
yeah. I mean,
What kind of gas does it
if
take?
Caitlin comes in and interviews for a sales job, you're going to hire her based on your gut. And 4 years ago, she wouldn't have been your top producer
Wouldn't have been top.
because she wasn't motivated by money and she didn't really value herself enough. And now that she does, she's a great sales professional now. She does a really good job valuing both her time, her money, and her knowledge. Like I said, this girl is a fact-finding fool. She has more information. That's valuable.
Yeah.
That's valuable. As we do these podcasts, your knowledge comes out. As we go to events, we were at a Jack Canfield event that Caitlin just came along with me. And while we were there, Patty Aubrey was like, oh my gosh, Caitlin's here. I'm bringing her in my breakouts.
Yep.
And Caitlin brought her knowledge, her power to the room and made a huge impact on that organization, that
It was
training.
amazing. Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about behaviors now. Or we've talked about motivators. Let's talk about behaviors now.
Okay, and so motivators, just to recap, that's why you go to a room. And if you want more information on why you go into rooms, or maybe one of your teammates or your employees that should be a better employee and they're not showing up, this would give you insight. And again, we do
Absolutely.
one free one for every business owner to start the conversation. So once we understand why somebody's going in the room, now we can use the DISC, the behavioral style. How is this person going to show up in the room? If you put Miss Caitlin in a room full of strangers, I know how she's going to show up.
I'm going to be leaving the room in about 2 seconds.
She'll be in charge, right? And this starts, we're going to go left to right, the D. And usually the color of the D is red.
Yes.
And a high D, like Miss Caitlin, assertive, direct, fast-paced, loves to
Decisive.
take action, goes right at conflict. She's not afraid of conflict.
I love it.
If you challenge her,
I love
she's
it.
going to go at it. So if you're listening, this sounds like you might have some high D in you. Now the opposite, and I'm a mid D converted. I've actually with mindset, and we'll talk about that later. But the low D is the opposite of Caitlin.
Yes.
So slow-paced, slower to trust,
Very easygoing.
cautious in making decisions.
Yes.
Doesn't like conflict.
Doesn't like making decisions in the fact that if I make this decision, what is it going to mean for others? Where a
Yes.
high D is like, I just made the decision. Who cares about others?
When you think about this, if Caitlin is a business owner in the home improvement space, or if you're a business owner and you have a low D admin and you come in, you actually overpower them without even being aware.
Yep.
And you find out 6 months later, there's been a problem in the admin department. And you go to this person and say, why didn't you tell me? They're never going to tell you because you didn't give them permission. They're not assertive. They're not direct. And you come in hot, they're not going to say a word. They know if they tell you, they're going to create a conflict, and that's the last thing in the world they want. So that's the D.
Yes, that's the D.
We see a high D in leaders. If you have to manage people, you have to be assertive.
You need to have the D above the line.
The midline.
It needs to be above the midline so that you are not afraid to tell it like it is, to hold others accountable, and to, it's a confidence in yourself too.
Yes.
Like it's a confidence in your message. So
in home salespeople, we look for above and when we say midline, the score is 0 to 100. And so anybody that scores 50 or more is considered higher on the D scale.
Yeah, in home salespeople, we like to see well above a 50.
Your D is like a 90 now?
It's 100.
No, it was 100?
Yeah,
okay.
I swear.
She's got a way bigger D than me, you guys. Damn it.
It's very true. It's as big as it can get, right?
Yeah, but assertive, direct, powerful. All right, so the next one is the I. The I is the interpersonal. It's yellow in color, and a high I, like Miss Caitlin. What's your I?
It's about a 90.
About a 90. So to a 90 I, a stranger is just a friend she hasn't met yet. So if I put her in a room full of strangers, she's going to have 20 new friends by the time she's done. And because she's assertive, she's going to be the high D going out and starting the conversation. So,
and that high DI is again, that's a profile we like to see for salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
That's a profile we like to see for business owners. Mm-hmm. Most business owners, most entrepreneurs, especially in the
home improvement space that we work in,
are high D, high I.
I would say 70 to 80% of the owners I work with are at least mid to high on the D and the I, right?
Yeah, at least 80% of them.
And in home sales, unless you're more of a longer term sales process, consultative. If you're a one to two stop sales process, you got to be mid D and mid I.
Yeah.
Low I, opposite of you.
Very introverted. It's so funny because people are high I's will be like, I'm not extroverted, but they don't view themselves as that. But what I always tell people is if you get in a group full of people and you're energized, you're typically a high I.
If you want to go hide or if you want to just be by yourself,
if you're in a group of people and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle this. Like I need to go debrief myself or just go relax. I got to lock myself in my car. You're going to be a lower I.
Yeah, sorry. Make me laugh. Well, I was just thinking, my stepdad, Ralph, who raised me in the home improvement business, and he was one of the best salespeople I've ever met.
Yeah.
I would have never hired him for a salesperson because his profile, and he's the anomaly. I promise you, we don't hire anomalies. And he was a business owner that was very utilitarian, so we could force himself to do things that weren't comfortable. 95D, like a 5I.
Yeah.
Really didn't like talking to people, and he was
like
on
people.
Stage selling all day. Well, at the end of the day, he would go home, and before my mom knew his DISC profile and his motivators, which she did learn as we took this in 2003. He needed some decompress time. He'd been a low I, introvert, selling, engaging with people all day, energetically.
Drained him.
He was drained. He'd literally go home and he liked to reload ammunition. He had a little gun room in the basement. He'd walk downstairs, might say hi to my mom, might kiss her, might not sometimes if he really was like, go downstairs, close the door, and spend an hour just by himself decompressing. So low I's usually like to work. Introverts, closed spaces. They might like an office by themselves.
Yeah, don't bug them.
Not out in the middle. Give them a closed door policy where they can put a note on their door if they're trying to focus on something and they don't want to be interrupted.
Yeah. And they're not so concerned about what other people think. Like it's not a detriment to them to be like, I can't make this decision because it might affect someone else. They're like,
when all of them have strength, like a high I, the strength is they love people.
Yes.
The weakness is they want to be loved.
Yes.
So like a really high I salesperson might take rejection hard because they like people so much. They always want to be liked. And if you hear no 2 out of 3 times, you might start to question if people like you, right? And so it is something, again, we use this as a hiring tool, ongoing management. And we do have, if you're listening, when I first took the survey in 2003, I mentioned earlier, I wanted to be different. And my mentor, with his information, knowing the time, said, Sean, you don't change. You are who you are. This was set by the time you were 8 years old. You're a lower D, you're a high IS, you're steady, you're supportive, you're good with people. Well, I've been doing affirmation work for almost 10 years. In the last 5 years, every single day, I'm assertive, I'm direct, I'm action. I've shifted my graph. I'm a lot higher, and Caitlin, even in the 5 years she's known me now, am I more assertive and direct today than I was?
I mean, you have to be. You're in a house too of all girls that are very direct, very assertive. I mean, me, Hallie, and Harper, we are high on the D, and so it's like, if not, you wouldn't get a word in.
Well, and I coach a bunch of powerful men. There's almost 40 gentlemen in this group, and they're mostly all high D.
Yes, 100%.
If I show up in my little D energy, hey guys, we're gonna get excited today. There's no respect there, right?
They're just gonna be
They
turned
have
off
to
so
see
fast.
somebody who has confidence, who's assertive, who's direct, who's sure of his message. And I wasn't always sure of my message. I was faking it till I made it for a lot of years.
Yeah.
But as I've seen and changed it, so if you're thinking about yourself and saying, "God, I would probably be a better business owner if I could be more of something," we have an assessment that will give you a starting point, and then we have mindset tools that will help you shift and change your behavior for situations, and it kind of becomes your superpower.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
So what's the third behavioral stuff?
So is S, which is
What color is that?
that one's green.
Green, steady, supportive, resistant to change.
Resistant to change, for sure.
Yeah, if somebody's like
Very systemized too.
Yeah.
Very systemized.
Yeah, high S will work their plan and plan their work over and over again. There's somebody you can count on to cross the T's, to go through the checklist and make sure things are being done in a systemized format. So
Well, and S's are also very people oriented. So the D, the I, the S, the C, which we'll get to, the C. The D is very task oriented.
yeah,
The I is very people oriented. The S is very people oriented, and the C is very task oriented.
yeah,
So you're an IS, which means, that was your original, was you're basically
I was all
IS,
people.
all people oriented.
And so because I was all people, the tasks that need to be done sometimes did, which
Yeah.
affected my profitability and my well-being, right?
Yeah.
In my personal relationships in the past, I was so about other people
Yeah, you
that I
sacrificed.
self-sacrificed
Yeah.
in my business. I used to joke that, my company, there were people there that had more of what they needed than I did. In my personal life, everybody around me had more of what they needed, both financially and even emotionally, because I was so focused outward on other people instead of inward on what is the task at hand, specifically for me. So,
Well, it's so funny because that S is so steady that it's rare to see a DS profile,
yeah,
right?
we've seen a
Because
few, but it's very rare.
Ds are very volatile.
Yeah.
Right? And S's are steady.
Yeah.
So you can't be both. It's a very, very rare thing. It's almost bipolar.
And
so,
you think
right?
a DS would be like powerfully steady, but actually they work against each other.
very much
We've seen a
so.
lot of indecisiveness in some of the people we've worked with. Low S, opposite of the high S. Low S loves change.
We just like to change things. And also it can be because we forgot the way we did it in the first place. I mean, I'm a very low S, and sometimes I'll be like, babe, we're going to do this. And he'll be like, why don't you just do it the same way we did it last time? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't remember what that looked like. So I don't know.
She doesn't really focus on the system. She focuses more on the task.
Yes.
And so there ends up being, which again, going back to her low utilitarian, would result in her doing a bunch of different ways, none of them that worked very well.
Yeah.
And now we come in and we more systematically approach it. But in home improvements, a lot of owners and high-level managers are low S.
Yeah.
You go in and change things just to change them, which can be good to impact change.
100%.
But it can also get in the way. So, if I'm dealing with a high S person that's new to the home improvement industry, I say you're going to have to get a little more flexible. You can't always plan your work. For me, the home improvement industry, and especially if you work on the outside of homes, the best run companies in the United States and Canada that we work with, they're organized chaos.
That's it.
Weather, old homes, human beings. Perfect plan is going to get thrown off when those factors. So if you are high S, it's good to know about yourself that you need to be more adaptable.
Yes.
And then if you're a low S, working with maybe a high S, you got to sometimes follow the system.
Follow a system because low S's cannot make a system, but they can definitely follow a system. So me, like I know I need a schedule. Like I need a system to follow.
And as long as we hold you accountable to following it,
then I'm great.
yeah.
But if not, then I'm going to forget there was even a system in the first place.
Yeah. So recap: D, high D, assertive, direct, task, high I, people oriented, very good at persuasion, at energizing, and inspiring. The high S, steady, supportive, people oriented.
Yeah.
Very, very good at structure. And a lot of
Yes.
times I'll call the S's the glues of relationships, the glues of organizations.
Absolutely.
All right. This one's your favorite. Tell us about the C.
The C is for compliance.
See, and you're the most compliant human
That's
being.
me.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I have. there's high C, there's low C, and then there's no C.
Which is below 5 points, right? You're like
Yeah,
5 out of 100.
I'm
four out of 100.
4 out of
Okay.
100. So low C's or no C's in my case. Look at rules as suggestions.
They ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Most
Absolutely,
of the time.
every time, pretty much.
Speed limit.
Is a suggestion.
It's
a great one.
No parking.
Yeah, if it says no parking, it just means it costs more if I get caught. That's all that means. That's all that means.
And it's funny because I'm a mid C. I used to be a higher C, but when we first started hanging out, and our good friend Janitha, I have these 2 low C, pretty powerful women that are trying to get me to break all the rules all the time. And
not to hurt anyone, not to mess up anything, but just like, why is that rule the rule? And that's dumb.
I mean, you'll know you're high C if you've ever sat at a traffic light at 5:30 a.m. waiting for it to turn green
without another car on the road. There's not another car on the road.
There's an internal part of you that says this is a rule. And Miss Caitlin, you'd stay there for 30 seconds, look both ways, and
see you later.
Right?
I got places to be.
Officer friendly. She does follow the traffic rules most of the time, but
I do. I have a clean record.
Yeah, and so when I see a high C in an organization, it's a lot of times in administration, an SC. The C is crossing the T's, dotting the I's. Really good at accurate data entry.
Oh, they love spreadsheets. Love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Love being able to check facts and make sure everything is equaled up and there's no errors whatsoever, right? That's a dream, which every organization needs too. You know, I think it'd be great if my C was a little bit higher with things, because I'll proofread something 3 times that I want to like pull my hair out, and then I'll still miss something.
Yeah. Well, in our team, we have Heather who does our operations,
and
she's much higher in the S&C than Caitlin, and she helps hold Caitlin accountable, and she helps double check things. And that's the thing too is, you know, you may not be able to totally change your style, but with awareness, you can build a team around it. You know, I've got longtime business owner I work with, and I'm sure he'd be okay with me sharing, Brett Cohen with Kitchen Saver. And
his profile's like mine.
He's a DI, and Tish Cole, who works with him, she's an SC. And they've worked together for over 20 years. And I did this process where I debriefed them probably a couple years ago. And I'll never forget going over with Tish, the visual of this is what Brett's behavior looks like. Here's his D, here's his I, here's his S&C, and here's yours. And I'll never forget, she smiled and she kind of leaned back and she's like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah.
20 years of a relationship with this gentleman. Now she has a visual of the mind to look at, an understanding of when they work together, they're a super team, right?
Absolutely.
They have everything, a D, I, an S, and a C at full capacity. When they work against each other, there's friction. And that's where this becomes a valuable tool. You know, we've used this in leadership teams. We've used it with business partners. We've used it in, we don't do marriage counseling, but in building relationships with a husband and wife.
Yes.
Understanding, you know, we have, you know, the Herberts we work with, Jason and Hala. They're both DIs. They're both, it's like 2 of her, right? Like both very assertive, very direct. And when they get in their heads, they can have a little friction. When they work together, they're the ultimate power couple. So.
Yep. And so it just depends. It's such a great tool for any relationship in your life, whether that's work, whether that's personal. And it's just about seeing like there's not one correct profile.
Yeah.
There are ones that are better for certain things, like we talked about, you know, the in-home sales reps.
Yeah.
If you're a 1 or 2 step close, we want you high DI.
DI. If consultative, more of an IS.
More of an IS is fine. But we need regardless of what that is, we need your motivators to be competitiveness
and money.
Like that is what we need. That's
and we
exactly
teach service first, money second, but
Yes.
you have to be driven by valuing your time and valuing your money.
100%. And if you're an owner, we like to see a good amount of D as well and high I, because you're working with people, you're working with everyone. And so you have to be personable enough to manage your staff.
Yeah.
You have to be direct and decisive enough that you're able to run an organization and hold people accountable.
And if you're not, you have to hire around it.
You have to hire around it, For admins.
We work with a lot of EOS type companies. And if you're an EOS, if you've got a visionary, usually the visionary is a DI. But if he's not, it's actually okay because you have a structure in place. Put the visionary, the owner in the seat, and then right below it, and if you're listening, it's a DC that is the best integrator.
I was just going to say, what's the best profile for an integrator? DC.
Assertive, direct, has to be done now. C, compliance, has to be done perfect. And this person can be hard to work for. And we do a lot of coaching around this, but get yourself a good DC.
Yes.
Even if you're not running EOS, if you need somebody as an operations or general manager that you want to move the needle on getting things done and getting them done accurately and holding people accountable, there's really not a better profile with a DC with good motivators.
Yes.
Got to have the right motivators. All right, Caitlin, I think we've shared a lot of good information.
Yep.
Anything else you want to leave listeners on behavior? Better understanding behavior gets you better results.
Absolutely. So that's, if you haven't ever taken a disc with us, if you don't use it for hiring, I mean, I do at least 50 of these a month that I'm doing for as a hiring tool for companies, that I'm doing for new business owners, things like that. So if you haven't,
even we've had several companies in the last year. They've got an existing team that they want to work better.
Yes.
We assess the whole team.
Yep.
We do like 25 employees. We put it together and then we do a couple hour presentation for the whole team.
Yeah,
and
training.
We can do it in person and you want to see eyes light up. I mean, we actually play a game where it's guess the profile.
Yeah.
And people find out more about the people. They may have been working with somebody for 10 years and they learn something new
every time,
understanding their behavior. And every single time we build better culture, better communication.
That's key. The culture improves drastically with a training like that.
Yes.
Every time.
Yeah. All right. How does it get better?
It just does.
It just did. Hopefully we left you guys some good information. All we ask with Inner Blueprint, the podcast, please subscribe, give us a like, leave us a comment if you want to hear more of someone, if you like something. And then most importantly, share it. This information ripples outside of the home improvement industry. We love when our clients share with their kids the power of affirmation, the power of their minds, and the ripple effect is what we're all about. So Thanks for listening. Have an amazing day. Welcome to the Inner Blueprint podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride.